Shemai Pretties, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Caitlin Anwyn for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And the last video we did in this zoo was the tour of autumn and winter, which was Hydref and Gaeaf. And I said in that one that I wasn't sure whether I wanted to start a brand new zoo or start a new section in this zoo, and as you can see I decided to just stay in this zoo. I really like this map and I thought why not try and fill it out a little bit more. And today we're going to be starting the spring section, so we'll stay with the theme of seasons, and spring in Welsh is Gwanwyn, which sounds very similar to Anwyn, so I quite like that. And I noticed a few things in the tour that I wanted to improve, and one of those things was this Gondola Ride Station Building, and I thought this could be the start of spring. And the first thing that I sort of think about when I think of spring is flowers, and with the Europe Park, with the style of those buildings I thought of, and spring flowers are like daffodils to go with the Welsh theme, but then I thought with the European style buildings maybe something like tulips, and tulips are my favourite flowers. And of course Amsterdam is very famous, Holland is very famous for their tulip fields. So for this gondola ride I'm going to be doing an Amsterdam inspired canal street. So the station is going to be enclosed in a row of houses that is inspired by Amsterdam Canal Houses. And I have laid out a canal that's supposed to be in front of these houses, but I don't really have chance to finish the canal off, so I'm gonna focus more on just the buildings. But I do have plans to expand this kind of street into more of a usable building for the guests as well. And I'm also utilizing the grid pattern, so that using the grid to place the wall on either side of the line. So the red brick building looks like it's slightly further forward than the painted brick, so that they're both on the same grid, but there's a definition between the row of buildings. And I also wanted different style of roof. I started off with the red brick roof. I will be changing that. I wasn't really happy with that, but some of them are going to be like flat roofs and some are going to have the pitched roof. So at the moment this brown painted brick one is going to be a flat roof. This is where I like played around with the classic style a little bit more as well, that I hadn't really played with. So I'm using a bit of the limestone as well to create these different style roof designs. I think it might have been easier for me to just do exactly the same thing throughout the whole row, but I didn't think that was as interesting to look at. And I took a little break last week to plan out the zoo, but also plan out a few things that I wanted to do with my channel. I'm nearing 3 years on YouTube now next month, so I wanted to maybe do a little bit of a refresh. I want to try something new. I've been doing speed builds pretty much the whole time I've been on YouTube. I want to try something new, and I thought I'd try out some shorts. There's not a lot of short form Planet Zoo content, which I can understand because this one build took me 10 hours. I understand that. So what I thought I would do instead is play around a little bit with short form tutorial style short videos. Shorts as in like the YouTube shorts. So I'm gonna try it out for this week, and I thought we would do short Saturdays with a quick 30-second-ish shorts vertical video of tips and tricks that I've picked up through building. And they'll start off like more simple, like keyboard shortcuts, what I use to quickly duplicate things, rotate things for more beginners. And then as we get through the series, only if you really like them, of course, but I'll create more advanced tips and tricks then as I get along in the series. But if it's not like well received, I won't do anymore. It was just something to try out. I might even make one for the underwater path glitch, because I have a full underwater zoo, and I have noticed on my Steam workshop more than YouTube, people struggle with the underwater pathing. And I say it very skeptically because even I struggled with the underwater pathing, and I did a whole zoo with underwater pathing. So yeah, we'll play around with it a little bit. Once I'd built the painted brick and the red brick buildings, I thought then I could kind of cheat by duplicating those buildings then. It's definitely fiddly because of the fact that I needed to make sure that I wasn't blocking the gondola ride tracks at any point, so I had to make sure that I was kind of building like hollow buildings, just the empty shell. And to make sure that I was getting to the sides of the buildings, I was just duplicating it over and taking it just on the edge of the map so I could see the sides. But even with these little tricks of trying to duplicate the shell before I design these to feel a little bit more individual, this build actually took me 10 hours, which is too long for one video, but it's going to be one video because I'm splitting this up again. I'm also going to be decorating below the queue for the gondola ride. My plan for below the gondola ride is going to be next week's video. And that's going to be guest facilities more than anything. I'm going to fill the underneath of the gondola ride with shops and information, toilets especially, because I realised I have one set of toilets in this whole zoo, just to utilise the space underneath and make these buildings more useful than just having these massive, tall, European style buildings. I didn't want the buildings to be super bright. I do want to add in lots of bright colours, maybe pastel colours, just colourfulness. I was thinking for spring, like Easter with all of the pastels, but then spring flowers are always like nice and bright and cheerful. So I did want to like keep the buildings quite simple, but then have the flowers and all of the decorations be nice and bright, so the flowers and everything stand out more against the plainer colour buildings. But of course I don't really stick to that. I thought I would pick something nice and bright and cheerful to wear for my first spring video, and yellow's just a happy bright colour, isn't it? And I'm just hoping for sunshine, because at the moment we have a lot of storms in the UK. I'm also enclosing the queue path, like the entrance and exit paths from either side of the gondola ride. I'm going to enclose those in because what my plan was for the gondola ride is to feel like you're riding in between a row of houses, so in between the canals. So there's the outside of the buildings look like one row of buildings, but as you go through it feels like you're going in between two sets of buildings. I'm estimating that it took me 10 hours, but it probably actually took me longer because the footage is 9.5 hours long, and I was like, oh, maybe I forgot to record like half an hour. Maybe I forgot to record a little bit longer than that. I don't know. But there's going to be lots of chops and changes. You're going to see some of each building, but there's a lot of detail work that I've just skipped past because there's too much footage. But I thought this was interesting because the Europe pack roof details, they only really fit in with the painted brick. They don't really go with the red brick. And I like the red brick because it has different shades of bricks on it, whereas the painted brick is kind of painted, it's all one colour. But the roof decorations don't match the red brick, so I played around with it a little bit and used columns and panels of the red brick, so it all matches in together and it looks like it is meant to be together. And this last one is probably like just a big pain in the ass for me, because I actually built this all and then realised I wasn't recording again, so then I had to redo some of it. And this roof is going to be like squared off, which I thought was interesting because we don't really have square roofs. They're either like A-frame pitched roofs, or you can use these corners as like a bigger squared off roof. But what I tried to do was like do a narrower square roof, which was a bit fiddly. And I ended up using one of the Europe Pack roof detail objects to top that part because it looked a bit awkward with the corner pieces overlapping each other. Once I'd added in those toppers, it finished it off nicely. I started this by building them in order and I went from one side to the other, but for the front detailing with the windows and everything, I just picked one that I had an idea for to start. And I'm not sure whether I can show the reference image that I was looking at, but I didn't necessarily copy the buildings all together, but I picked one bit I liked from one and put it on another one that didn't look quite as similar to that, and I just grabbed different aspects of each of these buildings to create my own kind of mashup of those buildings. And so for the first one, I really liked this 3D detail, and it had like these curved archway points at the top, and then they just separated the building into 3 different sections that I was looking at, but I just decided to make it 2. I also tried to make sure that the windows were like a limestone colour, even if it wasn't quite the stone material. I was recoloring some like wooden and plastic textures into like a cream beige to try and match in with the limestone colour. I'd love a colour picker. That would be such a good building tool for Planet Zoo. We have the colour wheel, it's like the flexi colour, but it would be really nice to have a way of grabbing a colour from something that's not flexi colour. The only way I can think of this is Photoshop. In Photoshop I can hold Alt and it will grab the colour from an image. So I can grab a colour from my build and make the font from Photoshop the same sort of shade from my build. But I would love a colour picker for Planet Zoo, so I could grab the shade of beige from the limestone and then match it in with the plastic and wood textures, so all of the beige limestone colour could be the same. And the windows are going to be on the inside and the outside of the building. It might be an interesting way of putting windows in, but I wanted to make sure that I had these windows on the interior as well as the exterior, so it wasn't so plain, but it also adds light to the inside of the building. The windows glow at night and it's a really, really nice effect with all the windows glowing at night. But I thought it would make the inside of the building feel more like it's 2 separate houses. As the gondola ride goes into the center, you can see the windows on the inside, so it feels like there's 2 rows of houses and the gondola ride is going in between those rows of houses. The windows are probably my favorite part of this design because it's so much easier to make these buildings look more individual by doing different styles of windows. For this red brick building, I've used the same technique with the front, making the front a little bit more dynamic, having a little bit of a 3D thing going on the front. And for these windows, I didn't want the same curved top windows that I had for the building next to it. So I thought I would play around with the windows we have and try and create a nice big curved window. And it's always good to make sure that everything is lined up the same by either duplicate using advanced move tool and then select a different object. The new object is then lined up with the old object, or you can just duplicate the first object towards the new object and then line the new object with the old object so they're all level and balanced. But the windows just give these houses such personality. As much as I tried to make them staggered at the front, so ones were slightly further ahead than others, so there's a dimension at the front, they still kind of just looked like a row of houses. It's like detached, semi-detached. What's the one where you all have them together? Terrace, like a terraced houses, like just a row of houses. But once I started adding in windows, the houses started having more personality to them. They felt more individual. And I'm just using the different reference points that I have on the building to make sure everything is evenly spaced. So like the roof detail on this one is the center point of the building. So I'm lining up the windows to where the roof detail is, because that's going to catch your eye right into the center. If I've got a center detail on the top, you're going to see if I've got the windows slightly off from one another. So I've just made sure that I'm lining all the windows up to the center point so it all feels like it's not crooked. And I wanted like more square windows with this one because I had some like rounded arch windows for the first two. I wanted these to be more squared off. And now on to the last building. By this point I was like, is this going to have to be separated into more than one build? Oh no. And trust me, I have skipped past so much, but it all kind of works in the end. Like, you don't need to see me duplicate things more than once, really. You know what it's gonna turn out like because you'll see all the pretties at the end. This one I think I was the most fussy with because it was the last one and I was so happy with some of them. I was just like, oh, you're just beautiful. I really love this. I want to go on trips to lovely European countries and walk along canals, and I want to see the tulip fields. Yeah, I was really happy with this. For this one, I wanted the windows to feel like they were getting larger as they went down the floors. I wanted it to feel like it started off really small at the top and then gradually get larger as you go down the building. And then lastly, adding some doors for the entrance and exit queues for the gondola ride. And I just added in the same style door that I added for the front of the building. And the doorways were a little too wide and there was a bit of gaps between the painted brick archways. So I've just filled in some of the gaps and added in the doors and made sure that everything was nice and neat, not just for what you can see once you're on the gondola ride, but what the guests can see as they're walking up to the queue as well. Did you know that there is a trick for different camera angles where you can basically make your camera, your controls, into a guest? It's what I did for the tour, the last video. If you select a guest in your zoo and rename that guest Terraced Cam, I'll put the words underneath. If you rename your guest this word, Terraced Cam, but it is like a cheat in the game, I guess, you can make your camera think it's a guest. So you can move around using the keyboard and mouse, and your camera will stay at the level that a guest would see. I really enjoyed creating these canal buildings, or these canal houses. It was interesting to try to incorporate the queue as well as the station building itself, so everything is nicely enclosed and tidy and hid away, so there's no messy long queues around the gondola ride. Everything's nicely enclosed in the canal buildings or the canal houses. It was really fun to play around with this European style as well. Next week we're going to be doing the guest facilities, shops, toilets, information, all of that. And creating the canal around the canal houses. Leave me some suggestions for habitat animals to go in spring or Gwanwyn. We still have habitat animals like the European badger and the California sea lion from the North America pack that we can make spring themed habitats for. So if you have any ideas for any habitat styles for those animals or any other animals that could fit in with this spring theme, let me know in the comments as well, and let me know what you think about the shorts tutorials, and of course what you think of this build. And I'm gonna leave it off there. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload on Wednesdays for long form and short Saturdays for now anyway. Let's try that. New thing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.